Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy New Year. Thanks for joining. Let me know if you can hear me. If anyone could give me a thumbs up, that would be awesome. Hope everyone had a great end to their Q4. Personally, I'm coming off the best month I've ever had on my Merch by Amazon account, largely thanks to ads, and getting ready to kind of kickstart ads again as we go into the new year. I think most of you probably are looking to do as well. All right, sounds like we sound good. So what I'm going to do is jump into talking about optimizing your existing campaigns as we start this new year off. I'm sure a lot of you had drastically dropped your bids or even paused your campaigns completely with the end of the holiday season. So now it's time to kind of get those back to where they should be and start re-optimizing those. Or if you're just getting started with ads, this is we're going to be talking about that too. What type of ads to start, lottery campaigns, single ASIN campaigns. So we'll do that as well. And then we'll jump into the questions that have been submitted. So if you have any questions, you can submit those now, and I'll still be going through those. We do have quite a few questions to go through already. So appreciate everyone that submitted questions. Let's see the link. Still don't have my way around StreamYard as effectively as I would like. Here, I'm going to put a link in the comments. So you can continue submitting questions here, and we will try to get to all the questions. Hopefully that'll post. Maybe not to Facebook, but all right, let's just jump in and just start going. And feel free to ask questions too as I'm going along. I'll try to keep up with those. All right, so here is my Merchjar dashboard. We got it up here as well. Let's just look last 30 days here. So you can see coming into end of December, there's this big cliff. So this is where, and I talked about this in the previous live, so you can go back and watch that recording if you want to look at kind of the thought processes and what I did at the end of the holiday season to kind of decrease bids and make sure you're not overspending. So now that we're coming out of that, we want to start increasing our spend where it matters. So on our search terms and campaigns and keywords and all that, we want to increase our spend on the ones that are performing well and get the ones that aren't getting impressions and clicks and orders. We want to optimize those as well. So you can see from a peak of some days close to $2,000 or so in spend, all the way down to 150, 80, and now into January we're at about $25, $26 per day. I haven't done a whole lot of optimization in this time frame. A couple manual changes. I have some automations in here that do optimize as well, which we'll talk about. So my primary goal at this point is to increase my spend. So what we want to do, so I'm going to start off. So I have one of the main automations I have running is Smart Bids here in Merchjar. So this would be for anyone that is a Merchjar user. What that does is takes any target or keyword, so not at the campaign level, but at the targeting level. So it'll take your actual search terms, or sorry, not search terms, but your keywords, your product targets, your automatic targeting groups, loose match, close match, etc. And anything that has at least 2 orders within the window that you set, it's going to optimize those bids every day. And the reason it requires 2 orders is because it uses your ACoS. And if you don't have any orders, you don't have an ACoS. And if you only have 1 order, it's not really enough data to effectively optimize. So we want a little more data points. So Smart Bids is constrained to just anything that's got 2+ orders within a specified window. And for me, that window, I've been using more of a shorter window of 14 days. And this works well for this time of the period. So it's only looking at data within the last 2 weeks. So kind of that post holiday sales period. So it's going to be just kind of with that reset, which is what we want to look at. We don't want to be taking data, the older data when campaigns may have had higher conversion rates, a lot more traffic, and now that they may not have those same conversion rates. So they're going to require different bids. There's not as much competition going on. So bids may not need to be as high. So we want to look at just that look back window. And if you're not a Mershire user, that's okay. This just kind of helps slowly optimize your bids towards your target ACoS. And if you're not familiar with target ACoS, that's the first place I would start if you're new to ads, is choosing what your ideal target ACoS is. And I'm going to drop a link in the comments as well for that. It's a really important concept. You should do this before you even start running your ads. And if you are running your ads, you need to have one of these set as well, because this really acts as your benchmark for how your campaigns are performing. All right. All right, so what this is going to do with the smart bids is any of these targets within 14 days, if it has at least 2 orders, it's going to make a daily bid adjustment to those, just very small incremental. It'll make a bid adjustment up to 3% per day. And if it's a lower bid campaign, let's say it's a 10-cent bid, where 3% would be 0.3 cents, it's going to round up to the next cent. So on lower bid campaigns, it can over optimize a bit. So you do want to be careful on what campaigns you enable this on if they are on the lower side. Right now, I'm not too concerned with it because all my bids are fairly low with the drastic reductions that I made. So if we take a look at our targets here, and I've only made maybe 2-3 adjustments since the end of the holiday sales period. And you can see a lot of let's expand this out. A lot of my bids are going to be in the anywhere from 10 to 20 cents, where before they were much higher. You can see bid history. This one was at 25 cents earlier in the season, and now it's down to 11 cents. And that's going to be the same across the board, because what I did at the end of the holiday season was just a blanket reduction across all of my campaigns, other than 1 or 2 of my top sellers, just 80% bid reduction across all of them. And that just brings them down so I'm not overspending. And this is a point where we want to start bringing those back up. So I let smart bids kind of just do its thing. Anything that is selling pretty often. I wonder if I can, what's this do? Here we go. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Anything that is still selling quite a bit. So let's change the date range to the last 2 weeks. What, Thursday? That's about 2 weeks there. And my guess is most of the targets and keywords aren't going to have more than 2 orders. There's only going to be a handful of these. So smart bids isn't going to be affecting the vast majority of our campaign. So we can see here, this is where smart bids stops. It's not going to be optimizing with the settings that I have. Now I could increase that date range, but the issue there is that we start running into where it's pulling data from that holiday sales period, which is what I want to avoid. So pretty much everything else, it's not going to optimize. So any of these ones that are above 2 orders, it's making that daily adjustment of up to 3% a day. So it'll be at least a penny or more if it's a higher bid campaign, such as, something like this is going to do maybe 2-3 cents, 4 cents at a time. And that pretty much kind of takes care of those. And it's based off the ACoS versus what my target ACoS is. For most of my campaigns, it's going to be around 25-26% is kind of my target. Some of them you can see it's a little bit different here, but this can be adjusted, and any adjustment is going to change that calculation. And what smart bids is doing here is, if the ACoS is below the target ACoS, it's going to increase that bid, that 3%, up to 3%. And if it's if the ACOS is above the target ACOS, like in this example here, it's going to decrease it same way, so 3%. So it's just making those really small incremental changes. Now, if you're not using smart bids or you're not a Mercshar user to have access to it, you can make those same kind of adjustments. I don't know that I would do it every single day. You could if you want to. It is better to make small incremental changes that I've seen with Amazon, just to be to give their give more feedback to their algorithm instead of that once a week, once every couple weeks, or less often, and making larger changes at once. I think you're much better off doing these small changes. If you are doing this manually, I would say at least once per week is what you'd want to make these changes. So these campaigns, I don't really have to worry about as far as like smart bids. I could just let these run and it's going to work fine. These are going to kind of self-optimize. Now I do have quite a few here that are really low ACOS that I would like to increase the bid more. So what I like to do here is, even though I'm running smart bid, I have automations, I still periodically, once a week or so, like to go in here and make manual adjustments, just to kind of get closer to what my target ACOS would be. Even those automations are running, just kind of help speed that process up. So I'll actually go through here and do kind of my standard optimizations. And there was a recent video we put out for 5 optimizations you should be making every week. And these are pretty much the optimizations that I'm doing, whether I'm using automations with recipes or doing these manually. These are the 5 optimizations that you want to be doing at least once per week. And let me just share that. And it looks like we're getting some questions in as well. And I'll try to go back through these questions as well, but it would be really helpful if you could use the link I put in the comments earlier to submit the questions. And I'll be going through that. That would be helpful. So let's just go through and start making some optimizations. So I have save filters set up. This kind of speeds up the whole process. But these are pretty much the 5 optimizations I just linked that YouTube video. And this first one is taking our high performing campaign. So this is going to be anything that has at least 2 orders. So same as smart bids. So it's pretty much going to grab those same campaigns. And anything that's below 23%, which again, my target ACOS 26%. I do 23% because I like to add a little bit of a buffer in there where if it's really close to my target ACOS, I'm not going to mess with it. It's already kind of doing its thing, and it's close enough that you don't really need to change the bid. So I let those go. I have a 2 to 3% buffer that I'll do on either side of that target ACOS. So anything that's not performing well, same thing. So with these, I just want to give these an extra boost. I want to increase the bids a little bit more. And you could do this a couple different ways. I'm probably just going to do a blanket increase. Actually, one other thing I want to do is I don't want to optimize my lottery campaigns within this. So what I'm going to do is negate these from the search. I like to just do those on their own. I use placement adjustments a little bit more in there. So I'm just going to type -, not, lottery. And that's just going to remove any targets that are within my lottery campaigns. And those I can go back in and adjust manually. That I'm doing in Ad Console for the most part for now, until we build in a few more features into our into Mercshar here, specifically around placements, which are coming pretty soon. So these are the campaigns I want to increase. And you could do this manually if you wanted to adjust like some of these ones that are performing really well, like the 5%, 8%. You might want to have a little bit larger adjustment on those. For now, I'm going to just take all of these campaigns. I'm just going to increase these another 10%, 10, 15%, somewhere in that range would be fine. But what I think I'm going to do is Once this is done, it's going to adjust all these bids, and that takes effect immediately. It gets pushed through the API. And then what I'm going to do is go back in, and some of these that are performing really well, I'm going to do another adjustment. Same kind of thing, like another 10%. So those will get a 20% bump. Some of these that are closer to my target, this 19, 18%, I don't feel the need to increase more than that. What we got here? No, that's not that one. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just change this filter. This is the easy way instead of doing what I'm doing. Anything that's less than 15, let's just do that. There we go. And just do another adjustment. And we're going to increase the bid another 10%. So those get a 20%, really more than 20% since it did 10%, then 10% of that already increased. I want to answer questions. How long do lottery campaigns approximately need till they work? This depends, and you're going to hear me say that pretty much on most questions, but my first lottery campaigns took about a month before they really started getting traction. It's going to depend on a lot of different factors, namely your the products that you have. Some categories just get more traffic than others. So also just the types of products. So like the niches that you're in, same kind of thing. Some niches just get a lot more traffic. So if you're, Merch by Amazon, different niches within the t-shirt segment is going to just get more traffic or not. If you're, something like a cat shirt versus I don't know, what's a small niche, cactus lovers is probably a lot smaller than cat lovers. So cats are going to have a lot more traffic, where you'll see if that's, depending on what your product catalog looks like, you're going to get more traffic based on that. The other thing is going to be your starting bids as well. If you're starting really conservative at a 2, 3, 4, 5 cent bid, it may take you, one, you're not going to get as many impressions if you were to start at a higher 15, 20 cent bid. And you may have to go through a few optimizations where you're manually increasing that bid every few days to start seeing those impressions. But I would say I would expect about a month or so before you really start to see traction with most of those lottery campaigns. All right, so we got those adjustments on those high performers. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just run through and see if I have any that aren't performing. So these are part of those 5 optimizations. This is the low performers. And this has the same kind of same orders. That there needs to be at least 2 orders for the additional data points before I'm really making any bid optimizations here. And as I expect, I'm probably not going to have a ton that have 2 orders within this short time frame that have an extremely high ACoS. There just hasn't been enough time. Traffic's been low. My bids are low. I'm not getting tons of clicks. Again, I've only been spending about $25 a day the last week or so. So not a ton of data coming in. So this is just kind of just a, almost peace of mind, make sure nothing's going too crazy. Same thing with this. And if you notice, I do have these low performers segmented based on how far away from my target ACoS is. And I do talk about that in that video. The reason I do this is I'll have larger adjustments on anything that's higher than 50%, then a little bit smaller adjustment on 40 to 50, and even smaller on 30 to 40. So I'm making a bigger adjustment the further away it is from my target ACoS. And then 30, 40, and nothing. So just like I expected with this amount of data. So the next one we want to look at is, I have a filter for anything that is 1 order. And this filter also has clicks. So what I'm generally looking for with this filter is anything that's only got 1 order in a large amount of time, usually a longer amount of time. So 60 to 90 days is what I'm typically looking at. And this is, I'm usually using to negate or pause targets that aren't performing. I don't do this too much manually since I have a recipe that runs to kind of catch all of these targets that don't perform or don't hit that second order, which I've talked about before. Is I use orders kind of as my validation. If you only have one order on a product or target, I don't really consider that validated. It could just be kind of a fluke that that order happened off of that click, where once it gets a couple orders, it's more validated. That second order kind of acts as like, okay, this probably isn't a fluke that it's getting ordered. It's got two different people clicked on this ad and purchased. So I'm going to actually just remove this click filter. Let's just see what's got one order. And similar, if it's got one order, it's probably going to have a pretty good ACoS. And anything that doesn't, so other than this one here. So we might make a couple optimizations here. Anything that does have one order that's doing pretty well, which is going to be most of these. I want to increase the bid. So let's add an ACoS filter on here. And I'll just take a second. You can do a lot of this in Ad Console here. I don't know why, maybe not right now. No data showing up. Let's see if, okay, so that's not working. A lot of this can happen in Ad Console, and there's a couple different ways to do that. I've walked through it in some of the other lives. You can use the targeting page to do a lot of these same kind of filters. You can't use save filters in that, so it does take a little more time to keep manually adding it, and you're not able to do something like a negation here for certain campaigns. So like if you don't want to include like your lottery campaigns with those bulk optimizations, that's not something you're able to do within your Ad Console here. You could do it in like your bulk operations. So if you download the spreadsheets and you can create different filters and so forth, there's some possibilities there. But I'm just going to stick to Mershjar. So just kind of, if you're not a Mershjar user, for one, you can try it out for 30 days. And it's free, unlimited trial, no credit card required. So you can check it out and do all these optimizations, save a ton of time. The other thing I do want to call out is within Ad Console, you only have a certain window to look at data. So for example, your campaign data, you have 90 days. You can look back the last 90 days. And for search term data, you can look back the last 65 days. And outside of that, once that happens, you can't see that data anymore. Now you can export your data through their reports and different spreadsheets. You could end up like aggregating that sort of data together, but that's a lot more work. What Mershjar does is, saves your data for as long as you're a user. So what we do when you first sign up, it's going to look at we're able to pull in the last 60 days of your data through the Amazon API, and then we store that data for you. So you'll always have that. So all of your holiday search term data, all that ad spend and data that you paid for, you'll be able to go back and use or use it within automations and recipes later. So like next holiday season, let's say you have a top selling product from last holiday season, you can take all those search terms that performed well this past Christmas and then put those into a campaign next holiday season just based off that data. And that would be hard to do unless you're tracking your own data within Amazon Ad Console and storing that by exporting your reports and so forth. But we do that for you. So this is a great time if you aren't a Mershjar user. You can sign up. We'll pull in all of that data from the holiday season. So from about a week into November through now, and get all that data that you paid for. So what optimization? Okay, so we got our one order. We're gonna add an ACoS filter on here just to do our couple different optimizations here. And since these are a one order, SmartBids isn't affecting these. If I don't do any kind of manual adjustments or have a recipe running to adjust these, nothing's going to happen. They're going to keep the same bids, which we don't want. So I'm going to say anything that's got 25%, just to filter out a couple of those ones that weren't performing well. And I'm going to increase these. Let's see where we're at. So all these are pretty low ACoS. I'm going to do a 20% increase on this. So they're selling, I want to increase the impressions and clicks I'm getting on these. And again, my primary goal right now is just to increase my overall spend, just to start getting more of that data in. And the more data you have, the easier it is to optimize, and really the more accurate decisions you can make based on that data. How do you handle target ACoS on lottery campaigns where you have products with different price points? That's a good question. The vast majority of my products are the same price for standard t-shirts, hoodies, and coincidentally, most of those have a target ACoS of around 26%. So I'm able to, I kind of just base it on that. And I have a lower target ACoS for my lottery campaigns. I target 15 to 20%. I'm pretty happy with on my lottery campaigns. So if you have products with where your profit margins are wildly different, you may want to consider splitting those up into different lottery campaigns so you can have each have its own separate target ACoS. If you only have a few products, so I guess it depends on like how many you have of each. If you only have a few products where it's a different price than what your vast majority of your products are, I'd probably just base it on what most of your products are, taking some kind of like average within that. But otherwise, yeah, if you have a bunch of different ones, I'd maybe consider a couple different lottery campaigns based on that. All right, so we got that bid going, and then we're just going to take care of those higher ones as well. And one feature I do really like within Merchjar is the target CPC column. So we have our CPC, which is our spend divided by the number of clicks. And that tells you just how much on average is costing every time someone clicks on an ad from this target. And then we have our target CPC column that's next to that. And what that is, it's a calculation based on your target ACoS, the CPC that you need to hit to achieve that based on your conversion rate. So how well this target is converting. And the conversion rate is just the number of orders you have divided by the number of clicks. So that calculates your conversion rate. So these are a bit off so I could just do a manual adjustment. I'm just going to type these in. It's a little easier. So my target CPC is 6 cents. And I'm currently at 10 cents. So I'm just going to drop this down. I'm going to bring it right to the target CPC. Now that doesn't mean, target CPC is this amount. I'm just going to make all my bids what my target CPC is. It doesn't mean you should set your bid at that. And a couple reasons why it is, and you can see on this one, their placement adjustments affect what your actual bid is. So if you have bid adjustments on your top of search or product pages, that's going to increase what your actual bid is. So like on this one, the effective bid is, when it was 10 cents, is 12 cents. So it's got it's 100%. So basically it's doubling what the bid is, which is going to affect what your CPC is. And the other option for your campaigns that can affect this is your bidding strategy. So if you're using an up and down bidding strategy, Amazon will up to double your bid if they think a user is more likely to convert. So that can affect your CPC as well. So it's not, the approach I would take is, if there's a difference between the two, it's just giving you kind of awareness of how far away your bids currently are to where they should be. And this one's quite far off to where maybe I want to decrease this to 10 cents and kind of see where that goes. All right, so now we've taken care of anything that's got 2 orders, anything that's got 1 order. The next thing we want to look at is anything that's got 0 orders. And this is another one I have a click threshold on. So again, I'm using this more to typically pause targets. Now, since we're looking at a short date range, I don't want to make a decision on pausing a target based on this short of a date range. What we're looking here now is just optimizing our bids. So I'm going to get rid of this click threshold. Actually, I do want to add at least, let's see. Let that finish loading here. Let's see. Let's just sort by clicks and see how many targets we got. So some of these do have. So like this one here, 76 clicks, 0 orders in the last 14 days. That could be a good candidate to pause. That's definitely over my threshold of usually 30 to 40 clicks with something like this. So this is something I'm gonna pause. It's a new year's, new campaign, so oh, not bad. Set state, and we're just gonna pause that. If you use Mershar and use smart bids and keyword promotions and so on, then what manual changes do you do when you go to Amazon ads? So you're basically seeing it here. I'll go in and do these manual optimizations periodically. So about once a week, I try to do this just to kind of move the needle a little bit faster on some of these bids to get to my target ACoS, and just kind of keep an eye on things. I find it helpful just to be in the account just to kind of see what's going on. And then the other area that I primarily use Ad Console, let's see if we can actually pull this up yet. Oh, I see. I know what's going on. I'm signed into a different account. Sorry. Let me fix that here. And then the other area that I really use it for is optimizing my lottery campaigns right now. I'm doing that pretty manually, mostly due to those placements, but that'll be changing here pretty soon as we get some additional features. And then the last area, maybe not the last, another place that I'll use the Ad Console for, or just manual changes, is for budgets. Let's see, this should pull this up. So for budgets, they have their budgets tab. And I'll use this just to make sure nothing is running out of budget. And I'll adjust the budgets here based on this. So I don't use Mershar for the most part for that. And then the other time, like during the really busy holiday period where you need to look at like up to the minute budget data, I'll use Ad Console as well. Mershar updates the data every 6 hours, and that's just due to limitations with the API. We can't sync it, every 5 minutes to continuously pull in data. So I will use that during those really high spend, high volatility time periods. So for me, it's like Black Friday till the end of the holiday sales period. Then I have some products that really take off in June that I'll do kind of the same thing for, just to make sure I'm keeping an eye on my budgets and that they're not running out of budget midday. So I like to keep an eye on that as well. And I'll make some bid adjustments on the fly too using today's data, which I don't tend to like to do since it's not incredibly accurate within Ad Console until at least 24 to 48 hours. But during those time periods, you really don't have much of an option. All right, so we're back here. So I paused that one campaign. That should have filtered out, which it did. And I'm just taking a look here just at these ones that are getting quite a few clicks and haven't gotten any orders yet. I'm not like super concerned. It's what you can do with these is a small bit adjustments if you want to, because I don't really want to, I'm not looking to necessarily pause anything quite yet, but I may want to just reduce the amount I'm spending per click just based on how many clicks these are getting. And actually these two I'm probably fine leaving. So just these two, I'm going to lower just a little bit. I'm just going to do a 10% decrease. And this question, I'm going to start going through the questions that were submitted as well while we're waiting on that. So why is ACoS the most important metric? Wouldn't there be equally interesting ones and maybe easier ones like cost per order? So there are different metrics you can use to kind of optimize your ads. ACoS and ROAS, which are effectively the same thing. ROAS is an inverse of ACoS. So they tell you the exact same thing. I like ACoS more than ROAS because it basically lines up with what my profit margins are. So if you know what your profit margins are, you can translate that to a target ACoS really easily. If you have a 25% profit margin, you know an ACoS of 25% or lower is profitable, and anything above that is unprofitable. So it just gives you like kind of an easier way to just see exactly how a campaign is performing. You can also, you can use cost per order. There's also like revenue per click, and we do have a lot of this data in here as well. So you can use that. I just prefer target ACoS, ACoS, just because it lines up really well with profit margins. So you can tell at a glance how profitable these ad campaigns are versus your profit margins. All right, so we adjusted a couple of those, and anything that is getting clicks, I'm just gonna kind of let roll. Yeah, we're just gonna leave those. So we'll move on to our next optimization, which is gonna be anything that's not getting impressions. We wanna start bumping these bids up. So especially after coming off this holiday sales period where we drastically reduced bids, you're probably going to run into a lot of campaigns that maybe you over reduced it. I don't think that's maybe the right way to say it, but you reduced the bid too much and now it's not getting any impressions. So we want to increase these bids. So you can see I have quite a few targets that aren't getting impressions, and you could change this threshold too. So if you wanted to also include maybe, if it's only getting a handful of impressions. So let's say, I don't know, 20, I don't know, what's a good average? Like 10 a day. That'd put us at like 140. So I don't know, we could do like 100, anything that's got less than 100 impressions during this couple weeks, we want to bump the bid up for. Yeah, so there's quite a few that aren't getting tons of impressions. I increased it by about 400 targets. And I'm just going to select all of these. So it's the drop down arrow here, then select all. So I'm going to make a change to 1,100 different targets all at once. And I'm just going to do a flat 5-cent increase. So right now, so I mentioned I like to jump in here about once a week. This is a good time this time of year to jump in a little bit more often, especially for like things that aren't getting impressions, to do it every 2-3 days. And just slowly increasing those. And we could also set up an automation to handle this as well. So maybe we'll jump into a recipe and we can create one to see what that would look like to just kind of take care of this whole process for us. That's still going. This one might take a couple minutes here. What are your lessons learned through Q4? It's a deep question. One of the things I definitely recognize, and this kind of ties into Mershar, is we're gonna for next Q4, we're definitely gonna be bringing in today's data and looking at different ways we can handle budgets, so that I don't necessarily have to jump into Ad Console itself on a daily basis, multiple times per day, to make sure that budgets aren't running out of budget. Campaigns aren't running out of budget. Okay, so here, itemized sync. This is totally normal. If you ever see this happen in Mershar, basically what this means is when we push that change to the API, we found that this target had mismatching data in Mershar compared to Ad Console based on the last time it synced. So this is fairly common. All it means is that Amazon maybe added some additional impressions or maybe a click from the time that the sync happened with Mershar to when we just tried to make the change, and you can just retry it and it'll push it through with the data. So it's just giving you a chance to review to make sure nothing like too wonky happened, but usually it's just going to be like some impressions or something like that. So as far as other lessons learned through Q4, really your advertising starts before Q4, so it's incredibly important to have your campaigns prepared and optimized, or at least have more time to optimize way ahead of Q4. So Q4 is kind of like the Super Bowl. You want to already be ready for that and have your campaign structures in place, your search terms that are performing well into their performance campaigns. You want to find what's already working so that when it does come to Q4 and the track, especially like Black Friday and beyond, that your campaigns are already ready to go. You're not testing them. Amazon already knows what kind of customers are purchasing your products from your campaigns, and just it gives the algorithm a lot more data to work with. So Q4 is not the time to start your ads. CPCs go up, more competition, so forth. Now's that time. It's really an ongoing process, but now's the best time to kind of get those in place and all throughout the year, optimize those campaigns so they're ready to go. I'll probably come back to this question as I think of stuff. This is pretty broad, but I'll think about that as we're going through this live. All right, so I increase those just on anything that's not getting impressions. So it's just a 5-cent bid. I'm doing that slow because when it's affecting this many campaigns, small changes can end up being a large increase in spend. And it's all about small incremental changes. Let's see, is there anything else? So those are the different optimizations I'm doing. There's one more in the 5 ad optimizations specific to lottery campaigns. I think I'm going to jump into that here in a bit. But if we did want to create an automation for the impressions, that's probably the one I would stick to with recipes. And the rest I'm going to let SmartBids handle, and then just do some of these manual bulk optimizations. But we could create a recipe, and actually maybe no, I'm not in the admin. I was going to say we can add that to our recipe world too. Well, let's create something with to handle the impressions. And there's a couple ideas on this. Let's see. Let's do over the last 7 days. Impressions equals 0. So we could keep it pretty simple. And just leave it at this. We may want to add some additional criteria. Actually, maybe we'll change it to stuff that's still like getting impressions, but if it's only getting like 3, 4, 5 impressions a day, we may want to keep increasing the bid. So let's see if the average impressions, let's say, I don't know, let's do like 40, somewhere in that range. And campaign name does not contain lottery. So I'm not going to affect those, which they probably are getting impressions, but just in case, I'm not going to have this increase the bid. And we want to change this to our targets. And within Mershar, targets and keywords are split up currently. Down the road, we're going to be combining these. So your targets are going to be any of your automatic campaign targeting groups, so loose match, close match, substitute, complement, and your product target, so any of your ASIN targeting. Keywords is going to be your manual campaign keywords. So those are split up just due to the way the API works, and eventually we'll be combining those and turning those more into a filter. So everything will be under targets. You can have a filter for just keywords, or a filter for just your loose match targeting, or just your product targeting, that sort of thing. So we could just keep it as simple as this, and this would work. So just over last 7 days, anything that's got less than 40 impressions, we're going to change the bid. And Recipes currently works a little bit different than SmartBids for how it calculates the bid changes. And we got a pretty big change coming up to it. But currently, when you do a percentage increase, so let's say we did a 5% increase, if that percent increase doesn't reach a 1 cent threshold, at least, it's not going to make any changes. So for example, if you have a 10-cent bid with a 5% daily bid change, that's only a 0.5 cents increase. Since it doesn't reach a full penny, it's never this recipe is never going to make any changes to a 10-cent bid. However, we do have a change coming up, and it's going to be a pretty big change, just how bids are calculated. We're adding bid calculation options. Might have a different name. We haven't. I don't know if we're going to call it something, but there'll be some options in the setting where you can choose how you want bids to be calculated when you're doing a percentage increase. And the new change that we're implementing is going to be weighted bid changes. So in this example, where it's a 5% increase on a 10-cent bid, it's 0.5. Since it's weighted, we're not going to round up like we do a smart bid. So it's half a cent is going to round up to a 1 penny. So it's going to make at least a 1 cent bid change every time, similar to smart bids. And the other option is round down. So it's just going to always round down to the 0 in this case, because it doesn't reach that 1 cent bid. It rounds down to 0 cents. What weighted is going to do is randomly increase the bid to that next penny based on that percentage increase. So if our 10-cent bid and 5% increase, it's a 0.5 cents, so it's halfway to that next penny, there'll be a 50% chance that it will increase the bid by 1 cent. So in this way, over the course of several days, it averages out to increasing that bid 5% over time. And if it was a 3% bid, we would have a 0.3 cent increase. It would have a 30% chance of increasing the bid. So this is going to be a pretty big change and open up a lot of doors with recipes. And I've been kind of waiting on that personally to set up some recipes, since it doesn't increase bids for a lot of these smaller or lower bid items. So keep an eye on that. It's one of our higher priorities. So I'm expecting that to come out hopefully the next couple weeks. No promises for sure, just because the way development works. But yeah, hopefully that's coming out here pretty soon, and that's going to be a pretty big change. But since that isn't implemented yet, we're going to just stick to a dollar or fixed currency increases. And what we could do with this is, since this is once per day, I'm going to have this do this once per day. We don't have weekly scheduling, or you'll be able to schedule on specific days. So if you want to optimize it twice a week, once a week, whatever that looks like, you'll be able to do that. But if we want to automate this on a once per day, we want to keep these pretty small. I think I want to just do 1 cent per day is something that could work. And just every day, if it doesn't have impressions, if it doesn't see any impressions within the last 7 days, it's just going to slowly increase that 1 penny every single day. As soon as it hits 40 impressions over 7 days, this is not going to affect it. And we can see here, if we refresh this, it's going to show us how many of these items it applies to. So you have some options here. I'm going to keep this at 0 though, and we will run this. Not sure why that's showing 0, but that's our recipe there. Oh, I should name it 0 impressions. So another idea I have with the 0 impressions is we have a new clause within. Let me go back. I'm just going to duplicate this. We have a new clause where, based on the campaign start date, so this would be useful if you're just starting new campaigns. So one of my favorite methods when you're starting a brand new campaign is to start with really low bids, and you're just going to slowly increase those bids, similar to what we just did with the last recipe we created, until you start seeing impressions. That way you can find that kind of perfect bid without overbidding. So instead of starting at high bids and just kind of seeing what happens and the CPC is higher, this is going to keep your cost per click lower. It will take a little bit longer to optimize, as you kind of may take a while to find that optimal bid before you even start getting impressions, especially if it's a high competition niche where you do need higher bids just to compete. So it really depends on how aggressive you want to be. If you do want to be more aggressive, start at higher bids, but the same process is really going to apply, because even if you're starting at higher bids, you still need to increase the bids if you're not getting impressions. So we could use any of our new campaigns that we're creating and go through this kind of bid increase process over a certain amount of time. So we're going to add campaign start date after. And this would be how long we want this to run for. So we could do this for 60 days. And any campaign that was created within the last 60 days, it's going to increase the bid by 1 cent every single day if it's got 0 impressions. Once that campaign start date is past 60 days, so that campaign's over 60 days old, this recipe is no longer going to apply. So we can do this 0 impression, new campaign. And let's just enable that. I like that. And for Merchjar users, we can add this to our new recipe world. So I don't know if we did an announcement on the last video for recipe world. This is our new feature where you can download recipes, and this is pretty new, so we don't have tons in here yet, but you can download recipes and import these to your account and across all of your ad profiles. So it's really easy to get new recipes in here. So if you go to merchjar.com/recipe world, you'll see all these. You can download it, and downloads its own special recipe file. And then within recipes, you can now import recipes that you download, and it will import to your account. And there was an option there, if you saw, to import to all profiles. You just select this, and it's going to import it to every ad profile that you have. So if you have recipes you want to share across your different accounts, makes it really easy to do. And you can export your existing recipes using the action button on these here. So we got a lot of plans for Recipe World, so we're pretty excited about that. But this is going to be kind of a mainstay as part of Merchjar. And we did get some questions like, with smart bids and recipes, which do you use? Again, I'm using smart bids now, but everything is going to be, recipes is kind of our long-term primary feature, and everything from smart bids is going to be put into recipes, where recipes is going to be taking over that. Just because it's so much more flexible, it's going to be able to do everything smart bids can do plus a lot more. There's still some recipes is still a pretty new feature for us, so we're still building that out. But yeah, everything's going to be going towards recipes. Even some of the promotion features as well. We're going to be working on ways that gets put into recipes. So it's just easier to. Everything will be easier to do with this, especially with the recipe world, where you can download recipes, import them, share them between each other, that sort of thing. But we'll go. I'll make sure these get put on Recipe World as well that we're creating here. I just got to do that from a different area, so I'm going to do that after this stream ends. So you'll be able to go to Recipe World and download any recipes we create on this stream and import those into your own account. So this one I'm going to delete. So that was one I already did. And we got our new impression. Now these would, now I think about it, these could end up running the same optimization on the same campaign. So if I'm running this, we might want to do the same kind of thing, and campaign start. Where was it? Campaign start date after. No, we want to do before. So this way they won't interfere with each other. One will take care of anything that's after 60 days. This one will take care of anything that's before 60 days. So they're doing effectively the same thing. I'm just giving these as examples, but you could add additional parameters here if you want to add some ACOS filters. You could also add different date ranges as well. So for example, without like putting a ton of thought into like what this would be useful for, and over the last 60 days, orders greater than 0, for example. So what this would do is, this is only going to increase impressions on targets that didn't get any increase the bid on any targets that didn't get any impressions. It should be 0. Didn't get any impressions in the last 7 days, but over the last 60 days, it had at least one order. So there's that's one of the more powerful features of recipes, is that you can use 2 different date ranges for your triggers. So I'm not going to have that in here. I'm going to delete that, save. I think this one was, yeah, this one, the same thing, had the less than. So we're just going to fix that. There we go. So there's a couple of our different recipes. Let's see. Does it make sense to only do lottery campaigns? And if ASINs are doing well, do single ASIN auto campaigns to collect search terms for manual campaigns? Yeah, so that's actually, that's one strategy for sure. So that's kind of what lottery campaigns are set up for. I have a... So this is our kind of overall structure. And if you've seen much of the content, you've probably seen something similar to this. Our lottery campaigns really act as our product harvesting campaigns to find new products to get into our keyword harvesting campaigns, our search term harvesting, which are going to be our automatic manual testing and our manual performance campaigns. So if you're just getting started with ads, and maybe you are running them for a while, you can just have lottery campaigns running and just use the data coming from those to create your single ASIN campaigns. I'd probably go a step further and also base your single ASIN campaigns on what's selling organically in your account. So you may not have, they may be selling organically and performing well, but not selling through paid ads. So you still may want to create some paid or single ASIN campaigns based on those. But the goal behind those single ASIN campaigns is to collect that search term data, so you have more control over that targeting and the bids and the budgets, placement adjustments. And it's tied, that search term data is tied to that single ASIN. let me get the right. There we go. With a lottery campaign, when you're looking at search term data, here we go. There's no way to tell which ASIN or ad is that search term is showing for. And that's one of the reasons that we do single ASIN campaigns. So when any campaign that's got more than one ad, these search terms from this campaign, there's no way to connect the dots between this search term and this ad. And you can kind of make assumptions if they're like all different, but there's no way to know for sure, which is where a single ASIN campaign is. If you only have one ad, any search terms within this campaign are only going to be for that ad. So we're able to know 100% what search terms are effective for that ad. Should you pause holiday campaigns after the holidays are over? I wouldn't. So I'm not a fan of pausing campaigns unless they're reach my criteria to pause based on their performance. People still purchase Christmas, Halloween, whatever designs or products all throughout the year. So there's not necessarily time that they're not purchased. What I would do on those seasonal products instead is just lower the bids. I mean, you could lower those. I would rather have a 2-cent bid on those campaigns, which you probably won't get a ton of impressions for, than pause those outright. And at low bids, you're probably, for one, there's probably not going to be as much competition on those seasonal products throughout the year, so those lower bids could still get impressions. And if you are getting clicks from those products because they're well targeted and you have a lower bid, so you're likely to be profitable with that anyways, based on just having a lower bid. Does it matter if you have seasonal products for 0 impressions? I don't think so. I mean, you could remove that if you have those segmented. So like, for example, this would be hard to do in ad console with the targeting because you can't do anything like based on campaign name or ad group name through their bulk targeting here. You'd have to use their bulk operations. But within Merchjar, whether it's a like with the recipes or within the ad manager, you can negate based on keywords. So if you have a campaign that contains all, or a keyword, maybe it's Christmas in all of your campaign names, you could negate that here. So it's just not going to pull up when you're making your bulk operations. And same thing with recipes. A campaign name does not contain Christmas or Halloween or whatever that like keyword is for those, or ad group as well. So you can do that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there. Let's see here. Let's so went through and optimized kind of all my existing targets. The next step would be doing that exact same thing I just did with the keywords if you're a Merchjar user, since they are split up. So kind of going through those same processes. I'm not going to do that since it's literally the exact same thing. I'm going to go through all my different save filters, 0 impression, high performers, low performers, that sort of thing. Let's jump into our lottery campaigns, and let's start here. I'm going to go through a couple optimizations with those. And the way I optimize these now, because I'm using placements so heavily, is the reason I use these in ad console. But I do have some decisions to make with these. So I have a ton of different products, and with each ad account, you have an ad limit across the entire account. You can have 2 million ads across all of your different campaigns. And that seems like a ton. However, if you are a high volume SKU sellers. So like a lot of Merch by Amazon sellers, KDP, or if you're an enterprise seller in Seller Central and you have tons of different SKUs, you can hit that pretty easily, especially if you're segmenting your lottery campaigns by targeting group like I do, where each campaign could have 400, 500,000 ads in it. It doesn't take long to hit that 2 million. So I have some decisions to make where I actually did hit my 2 million limit on this account, where I did not too long ago archive this lottery campaign, this substitute, because it wasn't performing as well. And I have some decisions to make on whether I'm going to do that with these other campaigns. Now, before I just archive a campaign, we have a couple options, and really this comes down to testing and which direction you want to go. You could just keep all of your existing lottery campaigns. If you have the ad space, if you only have 10,000, 20,000 products, it's gonna be a lot harder to hit that 2 million limit. But what you could do is start getting rid of ads that aren't getting any impressions, because the way the lottery campaigns work, they tend to work off lower bids compared to like a single ASIN campaign. And the reason for that is just because of how many different products that we have. Not all those products are going to get impressions and clicks on low bids. For whatever reason, there's just competition's too high. The Amazon algorithm doesn't like the product. It's not indexed or whatever that looks like. Some stuff just isn't going to get impressions. So what we could do is just archive the ads that aren't getting impressions. And there's a couple different ways to do that. So if we're going to just go in here, and this is just kind of part of this like New Year cleanup. So like here I have 311,000 products. So we're going to go in. So if I am optimized, so I'm going to show you just real quick how I'm going to optimize these campaigns. I'm going to open up my ad group in a new tab. And the first thing I'm going to look at is the placement. And I'm looking at the rest of search primarily to see if this is within my target ACoS. So my target ACoS with these lottery campaigns, 15 to 20%. If it's somewhere in that range, I'm pretty happy. I'm not going to make too many adjustments, which this one is. So I don't need to make a bid adjustment. If this was low, if I was only getting a 5, 10% ACoS, or if it was way above, if it was high, I'm going to make an adjustment to my bid at the targeting level. And I have all these segmented, which is what I'd recommend for lottery campaigns if you have any volume of products, just to start off with segmenting them. You don't have to, and you can do it later, but it just makes it a lot easier to make these bid adjustments. Because similar to like the search term and ad thing, if you have multiple targets or keywords or whatever that looks like within an ad group enabled, there's no way to tell how each of those targeting groups or keywords are performing at each of these different placement levels. However, if you only have one, you know exactly that placement is referring to this close match, and that's it. It's not aggregating all these different targets across each other. So if I did need to make a bid adjustment based on that rest of search, this is where I'm doing it. So this is my bid adjustment here is always going to be based on what's happening here with the rest of search and the ACoS. So if it was high, I would go in and lower this bid. If the ACoS was low and performing well, I'm going to increase it, and I'll make that adjustment maybe 2 cents at a time every few days, 4 or 5 days, week at the most. But I don't need to do that because my rest of search is good. So then I can just look at top of search and my product pages. And top of search is a little bit high, so I'm just going to bump that down. We could do that to like a 50% increase. So just kind of small changes to try to bring this ACoS down a little bit closer to our target. I do want to be closer to 15% if I can help it. Now, product pages, I'm already at 0%. And unfortunately, which isn't surprising from Amazon, there's not a way to decrease your bid adjustment based on the placement. 0 is the lowest. So you can't do a negative. It'd be fantastic if you could, but you can't. And product pages do end up being a considerable percentage of your impressions. And this is a challenge because it is, the product pages can end up kind of messing up your whole campaign where these are getting all the impressions and clicks and not performing, even though the other two are performing well. My strategy with this is I end up negating these ASIN targets based on clicks. And you just kind of gotta let those self-optimize out where it is you're gonna spend more money as it's you're finding products that aren't working. And when they hit some threshold of clicks, you'd be pretty aggressive on these, you know, as low as like 5 clicks, negate that ASIN. And then just kind of over time, those poor performing products are going to eliminate themselves. There's not a way to, when you're using lottery campaigns, there's just not a way to avoid the product page issue. You can't negate every single product in Amazon. First, just due to the limits within campaign. I think it's 10,000 is the limit to negative ASINs. But otherwise, yeah, you would go through and negate these. And if you're doing in ad console, it means going into your search term page, adding some filters. So anything that's got orders equals 0 and clicks, let's say greater than, I don't know, 5 clicks. There might not even be anything that has that many. Oh, there's some. So these are ones that could, oh, these, that's everything. Let's see if there's any like ASIN targets. No. So that'd be how, and then you would manually add those to your negative product targeting. So I do have this automated through recipes. I actually want to double check, see what those look like. But you can automate that through recipes as well. Where? Oh, I'm sorry. No, not in recipes, through promotions. Sorry. However, so promotions is used to add keywords and product targets as a negative target or to another ad campaign. So I do have these set up for my lottery campaigns where it's negating keywords. So it looks like I'm kind of all over the place with these, but what this is doing is looking at each of my lottery campaigns, ad groups, and let's just look at this one. So close. Oh, this is new. I haven't got a chance to look at this yet. So this is looking at this, these, my close match ad groups. So this is going to be the source. So these are the ad groups it's looking for. And what it's doing is every single day it's looking at every single search term from these 2 ad groups and seeing if they hit this trigger criteria. So if a search term has 0 orders over the lifetime, because I'm leaving it empty, so I'm just going to look at for all the data that I have available, and it's got more than 15 clicks, then it's going to add the keyword as an exact negative match. And if it's an ASIN target, so like from our product pages, these are your ASIN targets. If there's any ASINs that also have at least 15 clicks, it's going to add that as a negative product target. So it's no longer going to show on that product's target product page. And over time, these are going to, again, self-optimize once they hit this click threshold. And I might want to be more aggressive with this. I'm going to change this to a 5-click threshold. And you could segment these out so where you treat your keyword negations separate from your product. So for example, if you don't want to negate search terms until they have 15 clicks, but you want to be more aggressive on your products, you can just create 2 separate rules for that to handle that. So I'm just going to leave it at 5 clicks for both. Maybe I'll go in and adjust these as well. I'm okay being a little more aggressive on these. And 5, 5, 10. And just update those. And we got to add our product targets. Let's do that. Actually, no, I did have those separate. Whoops. So this one I did have segmented, which is why. So I might want a little bit higher. So same thing. So I have one for product, one for keyword, and they just have different triggers. So you could do that. Coming soon to recipes will be search term negation. So instead of having to use promotions to basically do this, you'll be able to create a recipe and add search terms to your negative product or keyword targeting across all of your campaigns in bulk. So you won't have to create a promotion for every single campaign to do this. It's going to work across all of them. So that'll be a pretty big time saver. Let's see. So that was lottery campaign. Oh, so the cleanup as far as if we want to remove some ads that aren't selling, I'm going to grab a different lottery campaign to do that. So like this one, this is our worst performing one. So let's just get rid of any ads that aren't delivering. Let's see how we can do that inside of Ad Console. Then we'll do it in Merchjar as well for another one. All that's loading. I think I just didn't save all those. That was my bad. Make sure you save your rules, which it did give me a warning, so that was my fault. So that's our substitutes. Our next worst performing, this one here. Okay, so this is actually an issue. I remember why I don't use this here now, is that you can only select up to 300 ads at a time. So it's not gonna, you can't get past the pagination here. So to go through all 74,000 and pause those is going to be a huge chore. So I'm not going to do that here. You could do it through bulk operations, which is a little more advanced than what I'm going to get into here. But that's an option. If you're familiar with bulk operations, you could just do your filters with the ads and with the lottery campaigns and just pause all those. Merchjar, we make it pretty easy. We have, within Ad Manager, you can pull up all of your ads. And let's pull up my lottery campaigns. So this should filter any ads that have lottery in the campaign or ad group name. All right, and we want to now filter by orders equals 0. And the reason I'm adding an order one, even though I'm going to do impressions equals 0 as well, is every once in a while you'll see an ad or a target have 0 impressions, but it might have a click for some reason, even though it wasn't shown, and it might have an order. So just a little tip there. All right, so here's all of our ads. So we could go through and just eliminate all of these campaign. Actually, here's what we're gonna do though. We want to increase the date range. So I'm just going back as far. I could have went back a little further, but this is probably fine. So the last, what, 6 months. And we're just going to archive all of these ads. So it's going to free it up from our campaign limits. This is going to be a big operation, but yeah, 415,000 all at once. We're just going to archive those. This might be too big. I'll double check with Tom on that and see what's going on, but that should still work. Not sure why that's not working, but we'll double check. That should work, and we'll get that resolved. So, but that's the process of what that would look like. Your bulk actions and archiving those, and that'll help kind of free up some space if you need to. Otherwise, I'd probably just keep them in there if you're not running into ad limits. You can input 500,000 inside of a single campaign. So again, if you're not hitting these kind of limits, I'd just keep adding to your existing campaigns. There are some strategies I'm going to explore as well this year of creating additional lottery campaigns. So especially once I hit these limits of starting new lottery campaigns and just kind of throwing a date on them. So you're kind of creating additional lottery campaigns as you go. You can do it on a monthly basis. You might have a January lottery campaign. February would be one way to do it. If you've been on Merch by Amazon for some time and you had access to ads previously, you may be fortunate like me where you have 2 ad accounts that you can use for your Merch by Amazon. So I have my original one that I got access to back in 2018, and then when they rolled out the advertising recently, I got access to that one as well. So I actually have 2. I don't know if I have it active on here, but I have a second Merch by Amazon ad account that I can use. So really I could use that one as well for my lottery campaigns as well, which I probably will end up doing. Let's go through. Can you say something about the priorities on developing Merchjar? What new features can we expect in the next 6 months? So I mean, most of it's going to be around recipes. So enhancing recipes. We're going to have ads within that. So within our recipes here, you'll be able to affect your ads, placement adjustments as well. We're going to have additional clauses, for example, being able to, instead of just doing the last X number of days, but choosing date ranges. So between 3 and 7 days ago, for example. So a lot of it's going to just be increasing the functionality of recipes. A couple features there as well. So of course, like being able to schedule on a weekly basis. We'll also have where you can schedule these based on time. So like day parting within campaigns, if that's something you'd like to do. Couple other things that'll be coming out likely within the next 6 months with that is some additional actions. So instead of just being able to set the state and change the bid, we're also going to have a notification system. So for example, when a campaign hits a certain budget or whatever the trigger is, and when it meets the criteria, instead of creating an action, it would notify you and send you an email and maybe some other possible notifications as well, still in the works. So that would be useful to where you don't necessarily like need it to do something. You just want to be alerted to some, something going on within your account. And another feature we just discussed, actually, it's a idea I had where it's going to be there'll be an action to send ASINs or search terms to a list. So for example, like with lottery campaigns, so we don't have campaign creation built in yet into Merchjar. That is likely to happen in the next 6 months, but for this example, let's say you have your lottery campaigns, you and any ASIN that gets 5 orders, what you want to do is find your ASINs that are performing well that maybe you want to create a single ASIN campaign for. You'll be able to send those ASINs to a list so you can keep track of that. Another area that could be useful for is like your search terms, like for your holidays. So any search terms that hit 2 orders and a certain ACoS within between Black Friday and December, you'll be able to send all those search terms to a list that you can then reuse for the next holiday season. So some features there. Let's see what else. We'll be bringing in the additional ad types, so like sponsored brand and sponsored display. That'll for sure be happening within the next 6 months. Let's see. I talked about the weighted bid changes, so that's coming up here pretty soon. Those are kind of the immediate ones. I'm not sure I want to go into anything outside of that, just because with any time with development, there's a lot of changes that happen. So I don't want to, put my foot in my mouth, I guess, that I've done way too many times. But yeah, most of it's going to be surrounding recipes and enhancements to Recipe World as well. Other enhancements are going to be really based around like onboarding, making it easier to get started with Merchjar. We recognize we're almost geared more towards like those power users, especially with like the triggers and stuff here, where it can be a little more complicated to create these kind of things, which is really where Recipe World came in at, but just making everything overall easier to use. So I hope that helps. If I think of something else, I'll try to chime in. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff we want to do. Our list of development issues that we're going through is pages long, so it's an ongoing process. But Yeah, we're excited about what everything is coming. Just how powerful recipes will end up being. Oh, the other thing that will probably end up coming to, I don't want to say for sure within 6 months, would be like multi-step actions. So you could actually do two things. So maybe it'll send you a notification plus change the bids, that sort of thing. How do you manage zero sales lottery campaigns? You just remove products from that campaign once they sell. If an ad is selling within a lottery campaign, I may create a single ASIN campaign for it. However, I'm probably not removing that ASIN from the lottery campaign. I'm not a huge fan of getting rid of stuff that's already working. So if it's selling from the lottery campaign, I'm just going to leave it, keep letting it do its thing, hopefully continue getting orders at low bids, and then let the single ASIN campaign kind of handle those higher bids as well. You can't compete against yourself. So if you have the same search terms being targeted by different campaigns or different ads, you're not bidding against yourself. You're not increasing your bid based on that. So Amazon doesn't let you do that. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. So I'd say just general rule of thumb, at least for me, is if it's already working, don't mess with a good thing. Let's see if there was any, I guess some other questions I'm going to go through from our submitted questions as well. See if there was. So that's pretty much, okay. So we went through basically our existing campaigns. Now for like new campaigns, let's talk about that a little bit. Where's our, so I'm just going to find an account I can pull up and we can maybe jump in and I think this might be it. Create some new campaigns. All right, this is fine. I think we can pull one from here. So when it comes to starting new campaigns, if you're just getting started with ads, you're kind of reevaluating your strategy, where do you start? So I'm gonna go back to here. This is kind of like big picture, overall strategy, what we're looking at. And where I would start, if you have a couple dozen products or more, a lottery campaign is where I would recommend everybody starting. If you don't have very many products, if you're like a Seller Central seller and you only got a handful of products, you could stick to single ASIN campaigns. Otherwise, I would recommend lottery campaigns for every single seller, and that's where I would start. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only thing you should do. Single ASIN campaigns, if you do have products that are already selling organically and they're doing well, there's no reason not to get them into a single ASIN campaign. And that doesn't mean you necessarily need to create a single ASIN campaign for every single one of your products that's ever sold. That's not the route I would go. I would start slow, especially if you're more budget limited. And especially if you're new to ads, it does take some time to kind of get the hang of things. And you don't want to kind of get it in over your head because Amazon will spend your money really quickly if you let them. So you do want to be a little more conservative with your bids if you're just getting started. So a lottery campaign is where I would start, and we'll jump in and we'll create a lottery campaign here as well, and I'll show you kind of what that process looks like. And then single ASIN keywords, or single ASIN campaigns, I would also start, as well as, again, if you have products that are selling, focusing on your best sellers. So kind of the 80-20 rule. Focus on the stuff that's generating 80% of your revenue, even if 2, 3, 4 products would be a good starting point. And then when you get a feel for kind of how much they're spending, and get an idea of what their performance looks like, then you can add additional campaigns to that just over time. So it's not something you have to just do all at one time, and I wouldn't recommend it just because of like the burnout that happens. It's a lot of work to go in and manually create all these different campaigns. And there's some tools that can help you with that. Merchjar, that's going to be coming at some point as well, where it will automatically generate campaigns for you, especially based on your promotion structures that I've talked about as well. But let's just jump in and create a lottery campaign to see what that would look like. So I already have a lottery campaign here, and this is a lottery campaign that is not segmented by targeting type. So it's got all of the automatic targeting groups enabled. So we got all 4 here. Compliments, that's pretty typical. It doesn't usually perform that well. So what I'm going to do is create a new lottery campaign, and we'll start segmenting it. So we'll just pretend this one doesn't exist. So let's start by, let's see, create a campaign. And if you already have a list of your ASINs, you can use that. That's definitely a challenge for merch sellers, since there's not a great way to get all of your ASINs. There are some tools like Productor that can help. I've had some issues with it just due to the size. I haven't had too much luck, but if you're able to use Productor and to export all your ASINs, that's a great tool. Actually, going back to some of the stuff we're developing. So one thing that is in development is our own Chrome extension. We've gone through initial testing with it, but what that will do is pull all of your ASINs from your Merch by Amazon account and load them into Merchjar. So you'll be able to see every single merch product and whether it has ad campaigns and promotions running for it or if it doesn't. And it'll be an easy way to get those ASINs into your lottery campaigns, as well as just like start new campaigns from them too once we get those features built in. So that's a little bit more on that. So this is our lottery campaign, and one really important thing when it comes to your campaigns is how you name these. And the primary goal, the overarching kind of theme to it is name them so you can tell exactly what's going on inside of a campaign without having to open it up. So just by looking at the campaign name, you know exactly what this is inside this campaign and what its goal is. So with this one, we're going to do a lottery campaign, and we're going to segment these. So it's going to be we're going to be segmenting these by targeting group, which down here that are close match, loose match, substitute, complements. So I like to have the targeting in my campaign as well. So again, I want to know exactly what's happening in the campaign just by looking at it. So we're targeting close match. And with this, if we move to lottery campaigns where we kind of create new ones as we go, removing ads that don't get impressions and kind of create new lottery campaigns every month, we might want to put a date on there. So I don't know, maybe this is January 2022. And our daily budget, so there's gonna be a lot of different up to you decisions to make. And it's gonna depend on kind of what your budget is, what your risk tolerance is, that sort of thing. So budgets, you could start these as low as $1 if you want to. This is the minimum budget, daily budget you can do. So Amazon will spend up to $1 per day. I'd recommend starting higher if you can. If you have a lot of different products, I would probably start at like $10, $20 per day. But somewhere in the $5, $10 range would be fine too. And we're going to do automatic targeting with these. Lottery campaigns are always going to be automatic targeting with this kind of structure anyways. And then our bidding strategy is going to be down only. You could test up and down. So what that does, as I mentioned earlier, is Amazon will increase your bid up to 100%, so double your bid if they think they're more likely to convert. I don't want Amazon to do that, especially with this many different products. So we're going to just keep that down bid. And then ad group name, same kind of thing. We want to use keywords and so forth so we know what's in our ad group. And especially with using Merchjar, having specific keywords in your ad group and campaign names gives you more flexibility when it comes to like your recipes to target specific campaigns. So whether that's like a keyword like a seasonality or the niche something's in, having that in there allows you to either exclude those from your search results or recipes or only include those as well. So this one, lottery close should do it. We could add the date if we want to, but I think it's fine on the other. And then I need to get a product. So let's see. I'm just going to pull a product from here. Okay, and then our bids. So this is another kind of up to you. I would start pretty low bids, especially since we're just gonna, especially as a campaign's brand new, we're gonna go in and check more often and increase the bids if we're not getting impressions when we're optimizing it. So something like a 5-cent bid would be fine to start. You could start higher if you want to be a little more aggressive and get that campaign data faster. You could start at like 10, 15, 20 cents. But I'm gonna start at 5 cents because we're just gonna go back in. If it's not getting impressions, we're gonna keep slowly bumping that up. Did I skip placements? Yes. So adjust bid by placements. This is that top of search, product pages, and rest of search that we saw. There's not an adjustment for rest of search, so it doesn't show here. And I like to start with 100% on the top of search. These are the first 4 ad placements on a search result page. So I just noticed I didn't have the right screen up. We'll go back through those settings. I just realized I had the other one up. I wish someone said something. So the search results page, the top of search. Let's see. Let's do cat shirt. This is so sponsored. So they only got 2, but there's up to 4 placements here, and these are all your top of search. So the adjustment in here only happens when you're winning that auction for that top of search. So this adjustment only applies for that. I'm gonna go back through this just real quick because I didn't have the right screen up. But our campaign name, we got lottery for the type of campaign. It's our close match. That's our targeting, and we're putting in January. Start date just today, and then end date. I never use an end date. I don't like to pause campaigns other than if it's based on performance. So I never use the end date. And then our daily budget that I talked about. But yeah, anywhere between $1, $20, kind of dealer's choice there. 10, 20 bucks, kind of that sweet spot. And you could go lower if you want to be more conservative or you're budget limited. And then our bidding strategy, down only. Up and down if you want to test that. I'd probably start with down only and use that for testing later. And then our placements, 100% on top of search, 0% on product pages. Those can be challenging. That we've kind of discussed that a little bit earlier why, so we keep that at 0%. And then our ad group name, lottery, close, and I have those in there, so again I can target those a little easier within Merchjar for me, but also if you're using bulk operations, be useful there as well. Then I added an ASIN, and I'm just going to do one, and I'll show you how to add ASINs to that later after we create it. So, and then our targeting or our bids. So you may see this, your set default bid. I don't recommend you use default bid, the ad group default bid on virtually anything. In my opinion, it's pretty useless. So the default bid, if you use the default bid, any targets, whether it's a keyword, if it's manual campaign, or like these targets here, is going to have the exact same bid, that 75-cent bid or whatever you sent it to. Now, the reason I don't like it is as soon as you change a bid at the targeting level, so if you go in and we got a default bid of 10 cents or whatever it is, and close match is performing really well, but loose match isn't, you might want to increase the bid of close match. As soon as you do that, close match will never use the default bid again. It's going to always be whatever bid is set. There's some other factors too, like when it comes to your bulk operation spreadsheets, if you're using the default bid, it's not going to show you within bulk operation spreadsheets what the bid on that target is. So you have to like go back and apply the default bid to it. It's just a pain. So I recommend best practice, set your bids at the targeting group every single time you create a new campaign. You'll just probably save yourself some trouble later. And then bid, again, we talked about anywhere between, you can do it as low as 2 cents if you want to be extremely conservative. So I usually start on about 5 cents, and I'm just going to go in and adjust these every couple days. And we're just going to leave it at that. So that's our new campaign. Okay. And back to our campaign manager. Now, as we're creating these, so you can do the same thing. You just go in, create a new campaign, and create your loose match, your substitutes, your complements. I'd probably skip complements and just do close, loose substitutes. For lottery campaigns, for the testing I've done, close and loose perform far better than substitutes. So those are the ones I focus on, but I would still test substitutes. You'll just likely need lower bids for those. You can copy this. There has been some issues in the past where this copy button doesn't work. It should be okay with only having one product in there, but we'll see. I've had one stuck in there for like 6 months, so that's an option. See if it refresh here. That may take a while. So that'd be one option. You can just copy it, go in and change the names of your campaigns and ad groups. So what that would look like, I'll just do it on this one. So if I was to do that, this was a copy. My campaign name would say like copy here, and I'd want to change that. Just delete the copy, change this to whatever targeting you're going to change it to or enable for this one. So this might be a loose. And then my ad group, we're going to go in. And we're going to change the ad group name to loose. And our targeting, we need to make sure we enable loose match, turn off close match. So that would be, oh, we want to make sure our bid is where we want it. So that'd be how you could copy it. Again, if that copy button works. Otherwise, you would just go in and create the campaigns just like we just did. And then when you, and I like to just create them just with one ad, and I'll add the ads later, which I'll show you how to do. You drill down to, if you're doing this in ad console, you're going to drill down to your ad group level and then ads, and then you're just going to add products to advertise. And you can copy and paste a list of ASINs right into this box. Now, one of the biggest challenges here is if you're on, again, on merch, you might have tens, even hundreds of thousands of products. When you're pasting ASINs in here, you can only do up to 1,000 ASINs at a time. If you get over 1,000, you're going to get an error and you can't add them. So if you have 300,000 products to add, you're going to go in, paste it, add them in here, add your products, let it load, all that good stuff. Go back in. You're going to be doing these 1,000 at a time. That can take a considerable amount of time when you have lots of products. So if that is the case and you are a Merchjar user, we do have a new feature where you can add ASINs to multiple ad groups at once. So I do have a list of ASINs. I'm going to pull up, let me make sure I got the right account. So I have an account to add some ASINs to, this guy here. So it's a different one, but just to show. So there's actually two lottery campaigns here. One has 27,000, the other has 4,200. I have a list of 100 and some thousand. Let me see how many I got. 151,000 ads that we can add. Well, let's see. Let's try doing both of them. We've maxed out at about 500,000 is where our servers start timing out. We're always working on increasing our server capacity, of course, but in testing, we've been able to add 500,000 ads at a time. So with 150,000 adding the two, we're going to be adding over 300,000 ads. And this is done from your ad groups because you're adding ads to an ad group. And we're going to add ASINs. And this is going to be to advertise. So we're going to have some additional text there. But we add ASINs to advertise. And you just paste your ASINs. So I had an Excel spreadsheet that we have all our ASINs. And 151,000 we're going to add to each of these. Submit. And we're going to create 300,000 new ads. And, well, that might be too much. So let's try it to one, make sure. Well, now it's making me look bad. I did testing on this earlier and it was working, but let's try a smaller amount. Let's get. Someone's getting fired. 24,000. We're gonna add the. Okay, now that's going through. So something else for us to look into, make sure that's fixed. But so that'll add 24,000 ads at once to those. Let's see if we got any more questions. All right, here's a question. Actually, this was, there's two that are similar. Here we go. This, I have two questions that are pretty similar, so I'm gonna just do these at the same time. This one's pretty much, what would be your threshold to deactivate a keyword that is only collecting clicks, no orders? 20, 30, 40. So let's pull up. When it comes to, when it comes to when I'm pausing targets. So first off, should always be done at the targeting level, not at the campaign or ad group level. So what I mean by that is we're not looking at, let me pull my account up. We're not looking at the campaign level here and seeing if it's got 0 orders and X amount of clicks and then pausing a campaign. We're looking at the targeting level. So once this finish here, I'm glad I didn't do that 300,000. That would probably be sitting there for a while. But we're looking at the actual targeting options. So keywords and that really I'm treating keywords and auto targeting groups, product targets, the same in this regard. We're always looking at the targeting. So whether it's a manual campaign or an automatic, the difference is in how broad those targets are. So if it's an exact match or a product target, so if you see like an ASIN in your search term reports, those are going to be very narrow targets where they're only an exact match is targeting only that exact search term, and then maybe a couple more with like the plural and misspellings of it, so maybe just a handful. And that ASIN is only targeting one single ASIN, so they're very narrow. Versus something like a broad match keyword or an automatic targeting group. Both of these are extremely broad targeting options where they're going to be targeting hundreds, if not thousands of different search terms compared to that handful that an exact match is. And then you have phrase match in between there that's going to be broader than exact, not as broad match. And depending on what that phrase is will depend on kind of how many different search terms it targets. So because those keywords, because a broad keyword is targeting so many search terms, the clicks that you're getting are going to be spread out among more search terms. So for broad match, I need to have a higher number of clicks before I'm pausing that or archiving or negating that keyword versus that exact match, because they're not spread out as much. That, your 20 clicks or whatever is going to be very concentrated to just a handful of search terms versus that same 20 clicks on a broad match. Those 20 clicks might be just one click on 20 different search terms. So it's not giving a whole lot of data necessarily. So my general rule of thumb is the more data you have, the better, the more confident you can be in that decision you're making to pause that keyword. So when it comes to like putting a number to it, my exact match, I like to have at least 20 clicks. So product ASINs as well. When it comes to single ASIN campaigns, I know I was a little more aggressive on those lottery campaigns. But for a single ASIN campaign, 20 clicks for an exact match. And then on a broad match, I like to have at least 40 clicks before I pause that. And I also do the same thing for targets that have just one order. Go back to mine here. And it's the same idea, where an exact match, I don't need as many clicks. And a broad match, I'm going to need more clicks for I'm pausing that. So my zero, and that's what my zero order kind of campaign or filter is for. I'm looking for anything with more clicks. If you have more clicks than that, that just means you have more data to base that decision on. That's totally fine. But that's kind of my general rule of thumb. 20 for exact, 40 for a broad. And anything that's got one order, I'm basically going to at least double that threshold. So an exact match, I'm going to want 40, probably more like 50 because I already have one order point. I'm just trying to get that second order to validate it. So I don't mind kind of collecting a little bit more data. And then a broad match, I'm going to want at least 80. And I have recipes set up to handle these. So I have my zero order targets and my zero order keywords. These are the same thing. Just one's for targets, one's for keywords. And I believe this one is in Recipe World that you can download, but it's looking at the last 60 days, and you could increase, this time frame out further. I mean, the longer time frame, it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit longer. So what this is doing over the last 90 days, any targets that have zero orders, more than 50 clicks, and I also have a spend threshold on here. So I want to make sure they're spending. Actually, this is 0. I could decrease this actually. Well, this is going to affect all the targets. So this is kind of broad. So let me think how I might want to do for exact match. You could, so if you're, depending on how you structure your ad group names, if you have these keywords in your ad group names, which I do in most of my testing performance, I'll usually have the targeting. So, and ad group name contains broad. These got to be wrapped in quotes. This would be a good way to just target your broad. And then we could duplicate this to just exact match and lower our threshold, so that and then just target our only exact. That's the approach I would go if we're looking to do recipes for this. So I do need to probably make some changes to my own recipes for this, but I like to have just in general a click threshold. So this would be my click threshold for broad and a spend threshold. So the reason I do this is if a target is one that's getting that has a pretty low CPC, I don't mind getting more clicks there since they're a little bit cheaper to get. So I had a spend threshold. You could use ACOS instead of this if you want to do like and ACOS over 100% would be another clause you could put in here. So that's how I handle those. So there's my zero order targets. So I'm just going to say that we'll keep that on broad. And then one order targets is going to be the same kind of thing. So you have your time frame that's looking at anything that has exactly one order. My clicks are double from what it was before. And this one's using an ACOS. So same idea with the spend. I kind of like the ACOS better just because if you have variable product pricing, it kind of takes that into account. So 100% ACOS is kind of the target. You could lower that, something like 80% too if you want. And the other key to these too, again, where recipes really shine, is that you can have a second time frame period to look at the lifetime or a different date range. So if you want to change this to like last 120 or 150 days or whatever that looked like, it's also orders equal 1. So what this is useful for is making sure you're not pausing a target that maybe is in a bit of a bad streak recently, but has sold in the past. So this is only going to affect orders or targets that only have one order recently and also only have one order over the lifetime. The 0 order ones were the same way. So I hope that helps on that. All right, what's next? We did a lottery campaign. What do we got to do? Create a single ASIN campaign would be next. Let's do that. Let's open that. I'm going to grab that ASIN. So we're going to make an ad for that. So let's say this was one that performed well. And if I was doing this from my order data, I'd be looking at, you know, whatever's got the most orders. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Let's see if there's anything. As far as like thresholds, I think this is actually a question. Let me see. Oh man, we got a ton of questions in here now. It's gonna be a 4-hour stream. Start going through it. How can I download a list of all my ASINs to start a lottery campaign? So that is going to be a third-party tool. Like it depends. Let me first say it depends on the platform you're selling on. If you're selling on something like Seller Central, you can export reports from there. KDP you might be able to. I don't sell on KDP, so I don't know for sure. Merch, there's not a great way. There is a Productor extension, Chrome extension that you can use. That works for some people. If you have larger accounts, it runs into some issues. At least it has for me, but something to try. I mentioned earlier that we are creating our own Chrome extension for Merchjar that's going to do that same thing for merch. So that'll be coming up. I don't have a release date or anything for it. So I'd say Productor is probably your best bet at this point. Me personally, I'm kind of waiting for our own Chrome extension because of the issues I'm having to pull ASINs. So that's where I'm at. I will show you kind of a trick though. If you already have a bunch of campaigns running on Amazon ads, you can let me pull up my account again. Keep switching here. You can export or generate a report for all your advertised ASINs that will at least get you every ASIN that you're already advertising. So if you just have a bunch, you can do that and then get them all into a campaign. So I had one here. You'll just create report, sponsor products, advertise product, whatever. You probably get 65 days here. So your last 65 days, everything that's you have advertising, it'll give you a report there, an Excel spreadsheet that you can then copy and paste all those ASINs. So that's one trick. Productor is the best. I didn't see any issue. It depends on the size of your account. I have 900,000 products and it just struggles with that because it's storing the data within the Chrome browser. So it depends on your size of the account is from what I've seen. And we've ran into that across. We manage some other merch accounts too that are pretty large and same kind of deal. So I'd love for it to work, but again, we're kind of tackling it ourselves too, so we're not having to rely on any third-party applications for that. All right, let's create the single ASIN campaign. That'll be the last of kind of like things I wanted to tackle, and we'll just start knocking out some of these questions here. So this will be for anybody that's just getting started. Sorry, just clearing up some of my screen. So creating a campaign. So this is your first campaign. We're going to create a single ASIN campaign and just referencing this structure again. So this is kind of where we're at here. Now, this is showing a single ASIN campaign that's segmented by targeting groups similar to the lottery campaigns. You don't have to start that way, and I probably wouldn't if you're just getting started with your single ASIN campaigns, because this is really only effective if you're really getting the order data in, and you may not know what that's going to look like. So the only difference we're going to do with this campaign is just combine all these targeting groups into a single campaign. Just keeps it easy. So back here, so we're going to name our campaign, and same strategy applies. Where we want to be able to look at a campaign and know exactly what's inside without having to open it up. So the most important for me is the ASIN for a single ASIN campaign. So I'm going to grab the ASIN just from the top here, and I'm going to start with that. So I like to have the ASIN in the campaign name every single time. Makes it easy to filter down to a specific product if you want to see all the campaigns that are selling for that product. And then my targeting. So this is a sponsored product ad. So I'm going to do sponsored product, just SP for me is what I do. And it's automatic campaign. So I use SPA as my initials for it. So if it's a manual, I'll put SPM. There's a ton of different options that you can do. This is just what I personally do, what I found to work for me. So sponsored product, automatic ad, and this is an auto campaign. If this was segmented by loose match, close match, I would put something like that in. So close. So SPA. And then I want some keywords in there if I do want to, be able to filter by different keywords. So I'm just going to throw in the title. So assuming you did your due diligence on keyword research for your product titles, you should get your primary keywords right there from the product title. So that's what I do. Daily budget, same kind of thing. Depends on kind of if you're budget limited or if you want to be conservative or aggressive, but $3 to $5 would be pretty solid. Automatic targeting, then our campaign bidding strategy. Down only, you can start there. I do up and down for a lot of mine, but I am a little bit more aggressive. I would use that if you want to collect data faster. If you want to be a little more conservative, down only, Amazon won't increase your bid. And the bid adjustments, we're not going to make any bid adjustments on this campaign. We don't use placement adjustments so much in the automatic campaigns. And then ad group name, I use the targeting again here, so I'd put like loose match or close match, or just it's auto, something like auto all. Then we have our product. I'm just grab the ASIN again. Okay. And then again, targeting group, set the bids by the targeting group, not the default bid. And we're going to keep all these active. And bids, again, this is going to depend on how aggressive or conservative you want to be. If you want to be really conservative, you can start really low bids. You're going to just go back in every few days and increase that to until you start getting impressions and clicks. And it'll depend on your category too. If you're selling Merch by Amazon, you don't have as high of a product margins where your bids, you're going to have a tough time having more than maybe a 50-cent bid and still remaining profitable. Depending on the product and the search term, of course, if you have higher conversion rate search terms, you can have a higher bid. But we don't really know that because we don't have the data yet on the search terms. And that's what we're trying to find out. So they will give you suggested bids, and you can use that just to kind of get an idea of where your bid could fall. Close match on down, we're on down only. I'll start oftentimes in that 35-cent to 50-cent range. It depends a bit on the product too. So like this is where I say a lot of it just depends on how aggressive you want to be, the product type, and really you'll get a feel for this just as you start advertising and just kind of get your feet wet with all this. But close match, typically one of the highest performing ones, so I don't mind doing a little bit higher there. Close match, maybe in that same ballpark. And then substitutes and complements, I'm going to have a little bit lower bid for. And we're gonna optimize these over time. So whatever we put in here, we're not stuck with this. But this would be complements. Usually I'll just turn off. I don't see a lot of success with complements. Where if I do have a product, I might just test this later for something that is performing. But typically I just turn it off. And that's pretty much it. Something like that, again, you can be more conservative. If you want to be a little more aggressive, that's fine. If you're selling a higher margin product or you may need to have higher bids, and that's where the suggested bids can come in. You may not always see a suggested bid if there's not a lot of data that Amazon has on your product. So if they don't have your product indexed for a bunch of different search terms, you might not get suggested bid, or it's aggregate for, or if like the search terms just don't get much traffic, there's not gonna be search term data if there's not competition. So we're just gonna launch that. All right, and then we're ready to go. So now that we have those campaigns launched, now just go back in and optimize those over time. And that's that 5 different optimization. I'll link that again just so it's fresh in the comments. But these are the optimizations that you'll start doing once a week for new campaigns. I'd say a little more often wouldn't hurt, especially if they're not getting impressions. You want to raise the bids a little bit more. But that's the video there. All right, so that's all the things I wanted to go through. Let's start going through some of these questions. We got quite a few. All right, next question. How many clicks and therefore data would it take until a product ranks well for different search terms? Clicks don't really matter for ranking. That's just going to be based on orders. And it really just depends on the search term and the competitors. You need to sell more than your competitors to increase rank is really what it comes down to. So there's not like a hard and fast rule at all. That could be 100 orders to rank number 1. It could be 1,000. It could be 2. It just really depends on the search term, the traffic, and the competition on it. Oh, that was two. Oops. That was a 2-part question. I missed it. Let's see if I can find that again. So other part of the question. Do you maybe recognize that a product starts selling well after X amount of clicks, data, or time since published? So I base that on orders. If we're talking like organic, I don't know, once it starts selling maybe a few times a day, 2-3 times a day, I'm definitely going to look at starting an ad, whether it has reviews or not. If a product has reviews, even if it's not selling as often, that's another great candidate to start a single ASIN campaign for it. Reviews are kind of king for this. That's your primary goal, get as many reviews as possible. The more reviews you have, the easier it's going to be to rank and sell your product. Are you sure you can negate ASINs? Thought that wasn't possible anymore. I am 100% positive. That is found. I'll show you where that's found at. Inside of, you can do this at the campaign or the ad group level. Typically, I'm using the ad group, so just so it's specific to that ad group. We'll be under the negative targeting and then negative products. You would add your ASINs here. So same thing at the ad group level. You just go into the ad group and ad group negative targeting. Same thing, negative products. So that is possible. It's, you can do it on auto campaigns and manual campaigns. My total net return after tax is 2 times of what I spent on advertising. Is that considered too much advertising or the right rate? So this would be what is called total advertising cost of sales, which is based on basically it's taking your paid and organic revenue. So basically, like how much money you're making for your entire account or your Amazon account, and then taking what you're spending on ads, and you divide your ads by what that total revenue is, and that's your total ACoS. So from what you're saying here, if your net return is 2 times of what you spent on advertising, so you have and I'm guessing this is probably based on royalties, not necessarily on revenue. If you're a merch seller or KDP, it's a royalty schedule. So your total advertising cost of sale is going to be higher than what like a Seller Central seller would be because you're basing that off your revenue. I would say in this, just assuming that's the case, you're at about 50% total advertising cost of sale. That might be a little bit high. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, especially if you're kind of just getting started. You don't have mature products, which when I talk about product maturity, it takes 2 to 3 years in most cases for a product to become mature. And what I mean by that is it has a lot of reviews, hundreds plus. It's getting regular organic sales as well. So that's what I would consider a mature product. If you don't have mature products, it's not a bad thing to have higher spend to get to that point. Your primary goal is to increase the number of reviews so you can start really ranking your product. It's going to be really difficult to rank top of the search results, especially for high competitive search terms without tons of reviews, hundreds or even thousands, depending on what the niche of the product is and the search terms you're targeting. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily too much. I like to be in the 25 to 33% range. So another way to look at it is where I'm getting 3 to 4 organic orders for every paid order that I'm getting. So that's kind of my target. But again, it doesn't mean you're necessarily spending too much. You can optimize that and lower your bids to bring that down too. But I wouldn't be too worried about it if your products are still relatively new without tons of reviews. This one's a little bit long, but how do you get started in advertising for your first hit product? It's 10 sales per month in a lottery as a single ASIN with a limited budget. Automatic targeting, manual targeting, bids, placement, target ACoS. In the beginning, you can't go with $100 a day. My max is like $10 a day. How to optimize the very, very early stage. So that's kind of what we talked about is starting with that single ASIN campaign, just all your targeting groups enabled. You can start with conservative bids. And as far as like the optimization, that's going to be that 5 optimizations to make every week. You just might want to do it a little bit more often until you start getting those impressions and clicks. You can optionally start with a manual campaign. If you do that, I would be targeting very specific search terms that you know are that product should do well for. But otherwise, I tend to just start with an automatic campaign. I like to get the search term data from that to see what sells and not start a manual campaign until I'm getting that product data. And that's where it comes to, we start moving into this kind of structure from the automatic to the manual testing. And what that looks like, so I have a couple things I'll share. Where's my notes here? The first is like how to structure your campaigns into this automatic manual performance campaign. The live I did, the last one or the one before that, basically talked about this and how you would structure these. Sorry, one second here. Work on these links. So here is the link to the video, and there's a download available that has the rules of when you would move keywords from your automatic to your manual target to your manual testing campaign. So here's the video and the download. Where are we at here? Well, that did not work. 1 second, I got this here. And this is the download link to that structure in a PDF. It's just a kind of a little bit of a cheat sheet with those rules as well. So that should help with kind of when you move those keywords. Are there any possibilities to copy or clone SmartBid settings and recipes from one ad account to another without exporting and importing each recipe on its own? So SmartBid settings, no, that is on a per account basis. I don't think we'll be building in a way to copy those from one account to another, because since we are focusing on moving all of that into recipes. And as far as recipes, right now you do have to export it, each recipe individually. We're going to be making some enhancements for that, so you can just export directly to other ad profiles right from your recipes, as well as selecting multiple recipes to export at one time. So it is coming. So that's a pretty new feature, and we're always making enhancements to that. So for recipes, if you want a recipe to run once per day and change a bid, how high should the bid increase, decrease be? Probably only a few percent, 1 to 3%. Yeah, that's a pretty good range. So I like to think of it kind of on a weekly basis, and then kind of bring that down to what it would be for a daily. So for a weekly, 10 to 20% is kind of the most, 20% on the high end. For the most, I would want to optimize a bid at any one time. So if we bring that to a daily amount, 2 to 3% is what we're looking at. Now, one thing to keep in mind is with recipes, until we have that new weighted bid system in place, you may want to create a recipe with a bid threshold, so where it's only affecting bids that are, let's see, 2%. Let me. A 2% bid would need, or a 2% change would need to have a 50-cent bid or higher before it would change that bid, before it reaches that 1 cent threshold. Because right now recipes are rounding down everything. Once we have that weighted bid change in there, again, hopefully within the next week or so, that changes things where it won't, excuse me, it won't really matter what bid it is. So you could segment it out. You could have like 50 cents. Have like a 2% bid, and you can do for like lower ones. You could do a higher bid, so you're hitting that 1 cent threshold. But that's what I would do. I would keep it to only bids that are a little bit higher, since it won't ever change your 10 cent, 20 cent bids, that sort of thing, with only a 2 or 3%. This one's from Andre, and it says, more of a statement than a question. I have learned that when doing bulk bid changes, it's a good idea to periodically sort keyword and target bids by high to low to make sure you didn't accidentally bid $15 instead of 15 cents. This has saved me a few times. So this is actually a good piece of advice. So what that would look like, a couple different ways. Let's see. Let's do an ad console and an here. So we could do, within our targeting, you could set a bid filter. I don't know if you can sort by bid in Ad Console. Let's see. It does. So you could sort by bid here in the targeting, just see like what your highest bids are. You could also create a filter, so greater than, you know, if you $3 or whatever that looks like, you could do that. Merchjar, you could do the same kind of thing. You could add a bid filter to make sure, you know, nothing's over a certain threshold, so that there weren't any accidental changes. Question on batch creating campaigns. Will Merchjar be able to do that in the future? Yes, that is on a roadmap. I know how to do it from Productor. My big issue is creating duplicate campaigns. Does Amazon reject and return an error if you create two campaigns with the same name? I would assume they do. They don't let you create duplicate campaign names within Ad Console, and I would guess that those would spit back out an error if you're doing it through any kind of API or bulk operations sort of thing. So I would assume so. Looking for a good workflow routine to create individual campaigns for new products. That's probably your best bet right now. I haven't messed with it too much. I don't go and create tons of campaigns in bulk. I tend to focus just on my best sellers or ones that I see start selling regularly, and I'll just pop in and create individual campaigns at a time, and then the manual campaigns and promotions as needed. But I don't go too crazy with that. I really focus on my top, 8-10 products that are making 90% of my revenue. So it really depends on kind of what your product mix is. I know this has been a big ask from a lot of our users is the campaign name, campaign creation, especially with the promotion flow. So that is something that is definitely on our roadmap and will be building in. So the automatic campaign creation along with the promotion structures. So it's coming at some point. Some of these are a little bit duplicate from some of the stuff we talked about. That's okay. How do you identify products which you advertise separately from your lottery campaigns? Do you have benchmarks? Do you try out with the ones you believe might sell better? Do you then advertise one product or the design with all available products? So we got a couple things here. So lottery campaign. So it's pretty much based on orders. I don't know that I have a specific benchmark because it does depend a bit on the product. Some products I'll get 5, 6, 7, 8 orders in a lottery campaign for, but they're really long tail where I don't feel they'll benefit as much from a single ASIN campaign. So an example of that might be a design with some small town on it, for example, that might sell once every 6 months kind of thing, or maybe someone purchased multiple orders of it. I let those stick to the lottery campaigns, and other ones I see that do have potential, and usually it's going to come in from what I'm seeing outside of ads as well. So if I see that something is selling regularly, even if it doesn't have any reviews, and it's in a niche that I feel could have some real traction or it could be competitive, that's where I'm putting those in the single ASIN campaigns when I feel like it's got some legs to get traffic and a lot of order potential down the road. But single ASIN campaigns can still work at low bids with long tail products. So again, I don't know that I have a specific benchmark. The more time you want to put into creating these campaigns, kind of the lower your benchmarks could be as well. As soon as something sells a couple times from a lottery campaign, or it gets a review, it's a candidate for a single ASIN campaign. And as far as if I advertise one product or design with all available products, it's whatever the product sold. If a t-shirt sells, I'm not going to put the rest of the products in the campaign or advertise those unless those sell and hit. Again, same kind of thing. If I feel like it can generate orders and get traffic, I'll put that in a single ASIN campaign. It looks like this is part of it as well. Some of these were pretty long questions. Furthermore, if you take a look at a single ASIN auto campaign with keywords, search terms not converting in the 30-day look back period, but the keywords did convert in the 60-day look back with profitable ACoS, but now increased clicks and no conversion, do you negate those keywords or do you let them keep running since you cannot decrease your bid on a specific search term in auto? I'm looking at longer periods for negating search terms. I like to have at least a 60-day and probably closer to a 90-day in most circumstances for negating specific search terms. So like in this specific example, I would not negate those keywords. I'd let it keep running because it could just be a period of poor conversion. If it's something that historically has sold, I'm not a fan of negating unless it's just getting to a point where it's no longer profitable. So this could happen if it's like a trending kind of search terms that maybe they don't sell as well anymore as they used to. Seasonal is possible. Even then you may want to be careful with negating so that, with a seasonal products, if it's like yearly seasonal, like a Christmas design or something, you might not want to negate that so that next season that happens. So it kind of depends. But yeah, I'd first start just by looking at longer date range when it comes to negation. And I like a 90-day date range. That's also like why, like with the recipes that I mentioned, having those two different date ranges where you can also look at lifetime data or even longer period to make sure you're not negating terms that have performed historically well. How much time do you currently spend per week to overlook your campaign, and how do you keep track on your overall single ASIN campaigns? The time I spend in Ad Console per week, probably not as much time as I should, but maybe 20, 30 minutes. I keep it pretty low. It's pretty much those manual optimizations. I'll create a promotion here and there. Ads, just like anything else, though, is you get it out of it what you put into it. There's always more optimization. You could do more campaigns. You could create more search terms to negate and so forth. So the more time you spend in your account, the better off you're going to be. Since I am limited on time with everything going on, it's I keep it pretty minimal. I don't go too crazy. I focus on my top products. And then when I see something starting to take off, I'll create campaigns for it, promotions if I think they're relevant, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at this point. But you can't spend too much time. Again, like I said, there's always more you can do, more optimization, more analysis you can look at. This one's a little bit longer one. Let's see here. Why do automatic campaigns and search for keywords when we know the keywords searched? Since it is a niche, we have done research before. Example, I sell a t-shirt, German Shepherd mom. Why not create manual campaign and target all potential search terms? German Shepherd, German Shepherd funny gift, etc. It wouldn't not save time and money. So this, I kind of mentioned this before, is when you're starting those single ASIN campaigns, if you have done your due diligence with your keyword research and you're confident in these search terms, you'll speed up your research process or the keyword harvesting process if you do start that manual testing campaign at the same time. So you could start it with some exact matches. If you have other products that are in a similar category or similar products that have performed well with these search terms, you could use that. And you could start with like a broad match where you could have German Shepherd gift or German Shepherd shirt, whatever that is, where it's going to again speed up that keyword harvesting process. So that is one thing you can do. So I would probably say, like, if you're already familiar and comfortable with ads and you're confident in your research process, that doesn't hurt to do. I wouldn't start with too many keywords though, especially like broad ones. These ones you're listing, for example, you could target pretty much all those with a single broad keyword, and then you might want to have exact for the other ones, and you could split those up into 2 different ad groups. So a lot of different options there. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing. I would say, if you know what you're doing, that's fine. If you're new to ads, you're just getting started, I'd recommend avoiding that and sticking with the auto campaign and just going based on hard data that you're getting from your auto campaign before you're starting that manual campaign. But yeah, seeding that manual campaign with keywords is just a way to kind of speed that whole process up. What is a good target ACoS to set as a target for smart bids? So that's where that article I linked earlier, I'll link it again, kind of talks about. So a good starting point for your target ACoS is break even. So you're not profiting on your ads, you're not losing money either. And that's to get as many orders as possible, to get as many reviews as possible and start ranking and so forth. Break even's what I generally recommend. That's generally my target as well, just even with more mature products. And in some cases, it's higher than your break even point. So you'd want to calculate your break even point. So basically, like, what your profit margin percentage is, that's your break even ACoS. And you could set that as your target ACoS. If you want to be a little more conservative, you could lower it a little bit. If you want to be more aggressive, you could go a little bit above your target ACoS. But break even's kind of a general rule of thumb. So if you're making 25% profit margins on your products, 25% target ACoS is a good starting point. How do you determine your CPC for different campaign? So CPC is calculated just, was it spend divided by clicks? So I mean, that's kind of calculated for you. If you mean like your target CPC, like what you should be paying, so that's really based off your conversion rate. See which is, there's the way we calculate target CPC is going to be your conversion rate. I'm going to type this into a comment, and you multiply it by your target ACoS, and then multiply that by your average order value, AOV, and that's I'm going to put an example. So let's see, 10%. So this in the comment is the formula for it. So conversion rate times target ACoS. I didn't do the break, but times your AOV. And the example would be 10% conversion rate with a 25% target ACoS and a $20 average order value means your target CPC is 50 cents. So this can fluctuate just by your conversion rates, which do change based on seasonality, what the search term you're targeting for. And Amazon doesn't give you conversion rate. You can calculate all this manually, but within Ad Console, there's no column for conversion rate, which I don't know why they don't have this. but they don't for whatever reason. So we do have that within Merchjar. We have your conversion rate, and we calculate that target CPC for you, so you don't have to go through all that manual work to figure out what you should be paying per click based on how well your product's converting. Some of these are already answered. What tips would you recommend for getting a merch account to making $500 a day consistently? It depends a little bit on, I guess, like what your tier is. I guess like some general advice would be, for one, max out your uploads as much as possible. So I mean, the more products you have up, the more sales generally you're going to make. Having good products as well. Poor products don't sell. But I guess like further than that would be like, if you aren't a designer, don't try to be and outsource it. That's probably one of the bigger mistakes I do see new merch sellers make. They try to just do everything themselves and try to be a designer instead of outsourcing some of that work. And if you have access to ads, that's probably going to be one of the best ways to grow your account. Ads are hands down the easiest way to grow your Merch by Amazon account and rank your products. That's probably like, I know it's like kind of broad, but there's a lot of different ways you can get to making $500 a day, but focusing on niches that you know, yeah, that fill up your account, run ads, and keep testing. Is uploading designs daily and having a ton of uploaded designs required to reach your level of success? No. There's different strategies to it. Most of my sales come from just a handful of products. I do a mix of both because I have the slots available. I am going to use those as well as possible. So because of the number of designs, I do a lot of scaled designs. So where you'll have like the same design, you might just replace the text or the graphic. So we do a lot of that, but we also focus on high competition niches. There's certain niches that are just going to sell far more. I mean, you can look at the top 100 designs on Amazon. They tell you right in the the novelty teas or whatever to see what kind of designs are selling during certain times of year. And there's some niches that just aren't going to hit that kind of traffic. Like a pickleball shirt. Probably doesn't have the audience that something like a shirt targeting dads and grandpas, for example. Those seem to be some of the better selling ones. So I wouldn't say that, the number of design isn't critical to success. I think it helps to have those, and I'm glad I have them in my portfolio. As far as I might have a design that only sells once every 6 months or once a year because it's in such a small niche with hardly any traffic. But in aggregate, when you have 100,000, 200,000 plus of those, they really add up. But there's plenty of sellers that have far fewer designs than me that still reach this kind of level of success or have products selling tens of thousands in royalties per month. So it's possible. I would focus on the design, ranking those products, getting reviews. Advertising's been what got me here. And I think in where we're at with Merch by Amazon, just across Amazon in general, I mean, it's pay to play at this point, and to really rank your products and see the most success, ads are going to be the way way forward. And so I would recommend investing time and learning that. Do you find better luck advertising in high traffic competition niches such as gamer, breast cancer, etc., or low competition with 1,000 results or less, but not as much search traffic? I mean, I see success in both. So my couple best-selling products that are going to make up 90% of my traffic are in extremely high competition niches. So those make up the bulk of my revenue. But then when it comes to like lottery campaigns, those do really well with these low competition niches, which tend to have lower bids, where it's, you know, maybe not really worth having like a single ASIN campaign necessarily for it because of the traffic involved. So you can have success with both. So I wouldn't say ads can be successful on both of them. I see low ACoS across the board. So it really just depends. I wouldn't say one's necessarily better than the other. I target both. I got plenty of products and stuff that's super high competition. I really like high competition because of the sales potential with it. The top selling products have just enormous potential on the order, you know, thousands of units a day compared to some of these other ones. So if you can rank your products over time and get to that place, like I guess I would probably lean towards high competition in that regard. But there's no reason you can't do both. Looking forward to see where Mershjar will go in the future. There's so much potential. Thanks so much. We agree. We're super excited for the features that we're coming out with. We think the recipes is game changer along with Recipe World. Our mission is to make Amazon advertising easier, and I think we're well on our way. And just in the last 7-8 months since we launched into beta, we've come a long way. So, and we're really excited to have all of you guys here and all the support. Tom and I are super grateful, and the rest of the team, and we're really excited about this year and the stuff we'll be bringing out. We finally are at a point where we have a good foundation, which it's taken a long time. We've been building this product for about 2 years, and we feel like we're finally at a place where we have a good foundation and where we can really start increasing our new features and the capabilities. And yeah, we're really excited. So appreciate that. That's all the questions that have been submitted at this point. As there's some questions I didn't go through because I answered really similar ones previously in the stream. So you'll be able to go back in there and skipped a couple that weren't like super relevant to this, but I appreciate everyone for joining me. This went on a little longer than I expected, but had a lot of fun, and appreciate everyone submitting questions as well. You can continue submitting questions. We'll do these live Q&As from time to time, so definitely submit there. And one last thing I do want to mention is with our Recipe World that I talked about earlier, I'm going to link it here, is we are running I don't know, you'd call it a competition, I guess, but you can submit recipes to Recipe World, and for every recipe you submit that we publish, you're going to be getting 500 coins, so that's $500 in ad spend credit for Mershjar. And the person that submits our favorite recipes out of all of them submitted is going to get $25,000 in 25,000 coins in credit, so which is $25,000 in ad spend, which is a value of $250. So that'd be a credit towards your Mershjar account. So you can submit those. Link that again. But definitely submit some recipes, and that'll be through January 31st. So we'll be choosing one user that submits our favorite recipes for that. Here is the link. An alert function. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier in the stream. So a notification feature is in the works. So it'd be similar to what you're saying. So it'd give you an email if it hits your trigger, so you can take actions. Instead of just having to like change bid and so forth. So we do have a planned feature for that, which has some cool potential as well. So submission is here, and that's in the comments. But other than that, again, appreciate everyone for joining, submitting questions. And yeah, until next time, appreciate everybody.